Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would chat with you guys a little bit about this whole discussion of when we should be doing things like upper lower splits versus full body. And yes, movement pattern splits do tend to go into upper lower or push pull. And I would call push pull somewhat interchangeable with upper lower because you're doing two different sets of movement patterns spread over 4 days. So it's almost like a workout A and B. Um, the whole point that people need to remember when it comes to comparing these things to full body and everything else, yes, there's a preference issue, but there is also an organization issue, and it's primarily about organization. And no, body part days do not actually make sense because people will say, well, you could specialize in this body part. No, you can't. There's no way to specialize in a muscle group or a movement pattern by really only training it once a week. Maybe a movement pattern because you're coming in and doing a very, very large amounts of volume for that movement pattern. In other words, if you do 10 sets of squats in a day or 10 sets of deadlifts in a day, okay, that can be a specialization day. But body parts themselves, because of muscle protein synthesis, you're not doing movement patterns where we're just hitting a muscle. Well, it's not going to grow as fast no matter what you do to it if you only train it once a week. You actually reduce muscle growth. That's absurd idea. But when it comes to things like these full body 3 day a week, which is what I do these days, versus an upper lower, and I'm not even going to try to compare that to daily full body because that's a totally different beast. Yes, I've done it. You guys have watched me do the Bulgarian training. That is absolutely not for everyone. All right, a lot of people's lifestyles and mindset are not going to accommodate that, and that's not an insult in any way. It's just that it takes a different type of person to successfully do that sort of training, and the average person doesn't have the mindset for that. It's going to mess you up. You're not gonna follow through with it. It takes, I don't know, you have to almost be a broken person in a way to to do Bulgarian style training, and I'm a fan of it. But I'm also a broken person in my own way. So, that being said, we come over to comparing really the most popular proven protocols, not bullshit bodybuilding, but it's upper lower versus full body 3 days a week. So, you're talking about a 4 day split versus a 3 day full body. I think it's a matter of training volume. Because when we're talking about muscle growth, we know that going beyond twice a week for a muscle group produces very small changes in muscle mass, meaning frequency is usually better, but we see a tremendous diminished returns at that point. So people who are seeking maximum growth can get away with training a body part or muscle, any given muscle can be trained twice a week, and as long as they use a lot of volume, they'll be fine. They can probably stimulate pretty much maximum growth by doing that, right? They can stimulate maximum growth by doing that. But it's a matter of organizing it and giving yourself rest days and off days on top of it to let everything happen. And we need to remember an upper lower, if you pick big exercises, it's going to have some overlap no matter what. So, but it is an issue of training volume. And here's what I would say. When you are talking about consistently trying to hit up to 10 sets for a given muscle in a workout, that's when we need to start looking at things like upper lower instead of full body. What do I mean by 10 sets? Well, all right, look at what I do for pulling and stuff, right, and pushing. I do 6 sets of pressing 3 days a week, right? That's not 10 sets. Sometimes I do 4, right? Sometimes I'll do a 4th set. So I'm looking at 6 to 7 sets of presses. That's a lot of pressing for one session. And it seems like a lot because of the weekly volume, but it ends up being something in the range of around, if I only do 6, it ends up being what? 18 sets. That's just below the 20 threshold. And even if I occasionally add a 4th set, I'm still sitting around 19. I'm borderline at the point of benefiting from doing an upper lower as far as my pressing goes, right? But I'm specializing in pressing right now. My other stuff isn't quite getting the same workload. So let's say I continue to only do 3 sets of pull-ups every workout. All right, that's only 9 sets of pull-ups a week. And as far as leg stuff goes, let's say I do 3 sets of front squats, 3 sets of Romanian deadlifts, and a standard full body. Well, it's really only 6 sets, 18 sets for my legs, right? 18 sets. That's really not enough volume to where I would benefit from splitting it up. You get more benefit from the frequency because it's a lot of volume in one workout. Let's say you come in and you do 5 exercises for 3 heavy sets. quality sets, right? Quality sets. That is sustainable for one workout, right? I think it's when we want to start hitting things like up to 20 work sets in a workout. That's where splitting things up starts to become a big deal. 20 total sets. All right, what I just described is 15. 15 sets 3 times a week, that's moderate volume. You have rest days. You have 4 days off from the serious training to recover. And it works out really, really well because I'm not trying to maximize training volume. I'm still getting a very, very strong response, but it's almost prioritizing recovery. It's like giving just enough full body training response that everything is getting a good growth stimulus. I'm training all the movement patterns frequently, and it's slightly more focused on recovery. And I think that's the point. Full body 3 days a week is recovery focused. It's recovery focused. When we start going to things like upper lowers, we are trying to maximize training volume. So I think that's the point we reach to where we say, okay, I need to be hitting at least 10 sets per muscle group. And I mean direct, even sometimes per lift per week. That's where it makes more sense. Like, let's say you wanted to do these similar exercises, or we wanted to add a 6th exercise. Our upper days could end up being 5 sets of bench press, 5 sets of standing press, 5 sets of weighted pull-ups, 5 sets of rows, right? That's a lot. That is a lot of volume. But everything is getting every similar pattern, because again, you look at the muscles involved, each muscle is getting 10 work sets. All right, that's 20 sets in a session. You're going to have to space those out. You're not going to do more than 2 of those in a week, because that's, again, 20 total sets for upper body in a single workout, 20 total sets per muscle group spread through the week. We're getting up to pretty high amounts of volume at that point. It makes sense to split that up. And then the leg stuff, again, you're probably going to want to increase volume there. You're going to want to increase your volume a bit. So maybe up to 10 sets, right? 8 to 10 sets of front squats or back squats. Or you could split that up. You could end up doing, let's say you wanted to do both. You could end up with 5 sets of squats, 5 sets of front squats behind it, and 5 sets of some sort of deadlift. And call that a lower body day, right? So that's where it starts to make sense. When you want to do things like that, it really makes sense. Or even if you only did 5 sets of squats and 5 sets of deadlifts on a lower body day, that's a lot of volume. There may be some glute ham raises. Those are things that you could end up doing. And if you're wanting to do that sort of volume, when you're wanting to do that sort of training volume, you should consider splitting it up at that point. Because you're not going to do that into your others, because we're talking about at that threshold, when every major muscle's getting hit with that sort of volume, it's a problem. Like, I can get away with the pressing. I can get away with, 7 sets of pressing in a workout up to 3 days a week. So I end up with somewhere between 18 and 21 sets of presses. All right, I'm specializing in the pressing. That's my highest volume. You can do that with one movement pattern and set of body parts and do just fine on a full body 3 day a week. But when you're wanting to hit as many as 20 sets for multiple body parts, that's the threshold to where an upper lower makes sense, or even a push pull. It makes sense to do it at that point, particularly when we're wanting to start adding in extra exercises. Again, I can get away with this because I'm only doing pull-ups as my upper back, and then some of the Romanian deadlifts count for that. But if I wanted to add in rows also on top of this, we're talking about hitting a lot more sets, a lot of volume. At that point, it does make more sense, because this situation, you are now prioritizing training volume over the higher frequency. Now, the downside, because you're doing more total weekly volume on something like that, you only have 3 rest days versus 4 with more training volume. Our focus at this point has now become total workload. It has become maximizing training stimulus without quite as much recovery days involved. So again, the focus is a little bit different. At this point, I think that's the take home we need to understand when we're talking about an upper lower type split, is you are focused on training volume more than recovery at this point. And that's fine because there are phases where there are benefits to doing that. And so I think that's ultimately what it comes down to as far as where we are in our training. Are we prioritizing total training volume more than we're prioritizing, say, just tension and recovery? And I think that's a good way to look at it. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.